Welcome to another edition of Lessons Straight from the Heart. I am your host, Male Dopsy. We live in a world that tells us being alone is something to fear. That if we're not constantly surrounded by people, we're missing out. But what if I told you that learning to be alone is one of the greatest strengths you can have? Today's story is about the moment I stopped fearing loneliness and started embracing it. I used to think being alone meant something was wrong with me. I filled every moment with noise, friends, social media, parties. If I was alone, even for a second, I'd feel this overwhelming emptiness. So I did everything I could to avoid it. But no matter how many people were around me, the feeling never really went away. One night, I was at a party surrounded by people laughing, dancing, talking. On the outside, I looked like I was having the time of my life. But inside, I felt like I didn't belong. Like I was playing a role I didn't recognize anymore. I left early, walked home alone, and for the first time, I let myself sit in silence. No music, no distractions. Just me with my thoughts. And that's when it hit me. Maybe the fear wasn't about being alone. Maybe it was about facing myself. That night, I started doing something different. Instead of running from solitude, I leaned into it. I went on walks alone. I sat in cafes without my phone. I wrote in a journal just for myself. And slowly, something changed. I realized that being alone didn't mean I was lonely. It meant I had space to hear my own voice, to understand myself in ways I never had before. And once I learned to enjoy my own company, I stopped craving validation from others. I stopped settling for friendships that drained me. I stopped fearing quiet moments. Instead, I started embracing them. We often think happiness comes from being surrounded by people. And yes, human connection is important. But real happiness starts from within. If you don't enjoy your own company, no amount of people will fill that space for you. Learning to be alone isn't about pushing people away. It's about knowing that even when you are by yourself, you are enough. Now, let's hear from one of our viewers, Amaka, who used to fear being alone until she discovered its strength.
For years, I stayed in a toxic relationship because I was terrified of being alone. I thought being with someone, anyone, was better than facing life by myself. But one day I asked myself, am I really happy? Or am I just afraid? I made the hardest decision of my life and walked away. At first, the silence was unbearable. But then, I started finding things that made me happy on my own. Reading, traveling, even just drinking coffee in the morning with no one to answer to. I realized I wasn't alone, I had myself. And that was enough.
Amaka's story reminds us that the best relationship we can ever have is the one we build with ourselves. Now I ask you, have you ever feared being alone? What helped you realize that solitude isn't something to run from, but something to embrace? Share your story in the comments, because learning to be happy alone is the first step to finding real happiness with other. If this story spoke to you, don't just scroll. Subscribe for more daily stories that remind us of the things that truly matter. Turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Send us a direct message with your story, or share your story in your comments. And if someone you know is struggling with the fear of being alone, share this with them. It might be exactly what they need to hear. Lessons Straight from the Heart, where stories shape destiny. Follow at MaleDopsy on all major platforms: YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Discord, Threads, and X. New episodes daily. Stay tuned. Remember, life is a story. Let's tell it together.